seems to me that the power of a parable is related to how easily it is understood. If you tell a parable and people afterwards are like, what does that mean? And you just have to explain, let me tell you, okay? The sower, he represents God, he goes out, he sows seeds, and that represents this. Doesn't seem to be as effective as when, the message hits you right away. What will the owner of the vineyard do to those tenants when he comes? They answered, he will put those wretched men to a wretched death. They got it. Today's parable, I had a comment on the vineyard because it's in 3 of the 4 readings. But when Jesus tells his parable of the vineyard, it's really clear, the message, right? At the beginning, there's this preparation, this work of love, setting up the vineyard. There's the tenants who all they have to do is give, by law at the time, what was due to the owner of the land. And they don't do that. And so they're wretched people. And they even kill the ones sent to collect what they owe, until the Son is also sent. So it's not a whole lot we have to say because the message is so clear. Right? But we will say something. But the message is still going to be the same. Like God is longing for what is His. And what is His is that responsive love. This image, the vineyard, comes from Isaiah, which is why we read it in the first reading. And it starts off, let me now sing of my friend's song concerning his vineyard. My friend had a vineyard. Friend could be translated lover. It's the same word used in the Song of Songs when it speaks about my lover. And so it's really meant to focus in on, let me sing my lover's song. And the lover's song, God is the lover. And so now it switches. And God's going to tell his point of view about the love he poured out in the vineyard. And so when it has these details, right? He made this vineyard on fertile ground, spaded out the land, removed the rocks, built a tower, put a hedge. These are all signs of one who loves. And it's doing all he could possibly do to make it as great and beautiful for the lover, the one he loves. It's kind of like yesterday when I was for lunch, wanted to give a little party for Father John Williams, 75 years. So, what do? You put a tablecloth on the tables, buy some balloons, 75, to mark the occasion, cake and candles. Those are the details of love. And imagine if he just rejected that. I don't want all that. Give me my meatloaf and potatoes, because that's his favorite. No, right? But that's kind of what the experience was, in the lover's song about his vineyard. I prepared all of this, and I went hoping just to find those ripe grapes. And what I found were wild grapes or sour grapes. Things they were going to spit out when they put them in their mouth. And at the end, Isaiah tells us, what was the Lord looking for? Because that's really the question in the parable. What was it? What was the fruit that the Lord of the vineyard was waiting for? The vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the people of Judah are his cherished plant. He looked for judgment, but see bloodshed, for justice, but hark the outcry. Again, it's one of these translation things, but basically the word is both cases. He's looking for justice, for fairness, at least give to the other people what are their due. And what is there happening? Bloodshed, disobedience, taking advantage of the lowly, profiting from the widows, the outcasts, and hence the outcry. Right? I'm looking for justice, but hark the outcry of those who are being mistreated. And if you remember in the Old Testament, a lot of times the prophets are calling out the people on putting, sure, you keep my feasts, right? But then you rig the scales and things to take advantage of all the poor. Or is fasting just on, the way you're fasting, is that what I want? Or, that you free the captives, that you help the lowly. And so I think in the parable of the tenants, when Christ is looking at the chief priests, the scribes, and all the people in front of him, the elders, and says, you're the tenants who are meant to produce fruit. But they've been faithful, at least externally, to all that was required of the law. But the fruits that God wanted was the love, just like he put into the vineyard. One of the newly made cardinals from Argentina, Cardinal Rossi, he was a novice, and his novice master was Father Jorge Bergoglio, Pope Francis. So imagine if I was ever to be named Pope, and one of the novices here is named Cardinal, because maybe because I liked my novice. So he's telling stories, right, of his novice master. And he said, I remember, and it marked me, he said, I was on spiritual exercises, the Jesuits, right? So it doesn't have more info, but let's imagine probably at least 8 days, if not the third day, spiritual exercise. And Father Jorge comes to me and he says, how are you? ¿Cómo está? Bien. How are you doing? Well. Are you sleeping well? Yes. Are you eating well? Yes. Are you comfortable? I said, yes. But I had the feeling that I'm being set up for something with these questions. And then he looked and said, there's a lady outside with 5 kids, has nowhere to live. Go out, find a place for her to live, and then come back and continue the retreat. And he went out. He said, of course I went out. I looked, found a place where she could stay with the kid. But I was still in the back of my mind thinking, when can I get back to my retreat? I was still focused more kind of on myself than on her. And this cardinal has become known in his ministry for special emphasis on helping the poor, the needy, different organizations and things. You can read it online. But he learned the lesson that sure, spiritual exercise is very important, obviously. But at the heart of everything is the ability to give ourselves out of love. And so our Lord, when he says this parable to the chief priests and the elders, there's no doubt he's calling out to love. And I thought, well, there is an addition to the gospel that's not in Isaiah. And maybe it answers Isaiah's question. Because Isaiah asks, what more was there to do for my vineyard that I had not done? But the new figure, of course, in the Christ parable is the Son. The Son that comes is killed and thrown out, and then Jesus said, did you never read in the scriptures, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? And so obviously that's the image of Christ, right? Who lets himself be rejected, lets himself be thrown out, becomes the cornerstone of the new church, his mystical body, his love for us, which continues to be present, right, in the Eucharist. And so I think the message at least I draw from this for today is, right, let that parable kind of sink in as it's meant to. It's easy to understand. And it starts off an invitation to contemplate the love of the one who made everything. And his one desire is to find in us kind of a response of love. And sometimes when you feel like maybe we haven't responded as much as we could, or we're wondering what else can help me to draw out that love, well, we have the Son that we can now look at that we didn't have in the Old Testament. The one who gave absolutely everything and continues to be with us and come to us every day in the Eucharist. And so let's ask our Lord to allow us to receive him with that love, that gratitude, so that day by day we can give him that sweet grapes that he's longing for.